principles in this book are applicable across a broad range of conflicts. I find that I think about violence as a very broad spectrum, moving from war to the first impulse we have toward or away from each other. And in between that lie the infinity of human interactions. And the principles talked about in this book are ones that we can come back to regardless of the specific circumstance of conflict. So for example, an international conflict ultimately comes down to the same questions. What are we addressing? What is important to the people? Or are we instead trying to push through a strategy based on something that's not connected to the situation? And so all of these principles are also connected to the decisions that we are already making. And anyone from a politician to a parent is already making these decisions in every situation. Whether or not we are aware of it is another question. So each chapter in the book boils down to the last thing in each chapter is the choice that says either we're doing this or we're doing this. And we might kind of try to ignore that second part and think, oh, I'm probably doing this. But in fact, we're making a choice. And so the book is also kind of a challenge to us to come back to ourselves over and over and say, okay, what am I choosing? And sometimes people will say, well, that's great for people who want to change themselves, but a lot of people don't want to change themselves. And what about politicians? And what about people who are acting based on self-interest? And ultimately, the way I see it, all of these systems that we're a part of function on the same principles. They depend on people's needs being met. And so how we choose to go about either preventing those needs from being met or moving toward finding systems that make sense, that involve everybody, even the people we don't want to be involved with. How do we create a solution that has to do with the entirety? So not just what I think should happen. So in this sense, and it is a broad project, but it's a project we're already involved with. So we can't say, well, it's impossible because those people are impossible, because we're already in the middle of it. So the choice is, how do we choose to go forward from this point?